First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for this very nice workshop. So I am very happy to be here. And actually, I'm from Istanbul University Physics Department, and I'm working on complex systems. So I'm further to actually the community. So biological systems. But during the workshop, what I realized is I realized some complex behavior actually, many of the talks, but no one said complex. So I thought maybe I can modify my talk a bit, content of complex systems, so to give some insights about the complex behavior, and then to give some application of superstatistics, which is the method to understand, we use to understand the complex systems. So these are actually my applications. So I put this slide to show how the complex systems varies in different fields. We work on cosmic rays, superstatistical analysis. This cosmic rays data measured by AMS experiment on the International Space Station. So in the physics disciplines, this is the application of superstatistics. And another one is the power grid networks. So we use the complex networks, also cascading dynamical failure to understand these complex systems. And also we work on the convert spatial temporal data to complex network. And very recently, actually just one day before to come here, we submit this work. The idea for this work, okay, we have time series data or we have spatial temporal data, and we use some techniques to understand the systems. But if we can translate this data to networks, in that case, we take advantage to use the network tools. That's why we propose this one. And then, for example, we use the air pollution of Istanbul. It's we have also very different areas, and then high density of the air pollution. This is the climate classification example. We applied environmental superstatistical analysis. So depending my time, I want to show some application of this, actually. So now first, I want to give some information about properties of complex systems. So, first one is the interaction. So complex systems consist of many components interacting with each other and their environment in multiple ways. So these interactions, of course, are not linear. They are nonlinear, and they are not proportional. So as you see here, the example, billions of interacting neurons in the human brain, is a very good example of interactions, to see the interactions as a complex behavior. So the next one is the emergence. Emergence is a very important properties of complex systems. Properties of complex systems as a whole very different and often unexpected from properties of their individual components. So when you have a complex systems, part of complex systems have an interaction, and that interactions generate novel information, unplanned, and this unplanned information, novel information, blocks to predict complex behavior in future. So the example here, the multiple cells forming a living organism. So you know this more than me, but what I know is emergence becomes here. So the symbolic sentence for the emergence is the whole is more than the sum of its parts. Also, the Mergelmann defines the emergence is you don't need something more to get something more. That's what emergence means. Actually, in this point, we have to remember Mergelmann. I'm sure we have physicists here, but also from other disciplines. Mergelmann is a high-energy physicist originally, of course, and then he explored quarks. That's why he knows as a father of quarks. And he was when he was 40 years old in 1969, he got a full Nobel Prize. But some 15 years later, in 1989, with his collaborators, he founded Santa Fe Institute. So Santa Fe Institute is the first institute to work on complex systems and to disseminate complex systems as a separate topics for this interdisciplinary applications. And also his books about the simplicity and complexity, Quark and Jaguar. And just after 10 years later, the institute was published. And there are many written books on him. One of them, From Galileo to Gell-Mann. Of course, this is not a random title, just to indicate the turning points. Because after Gell-Mann, people encouraged to start to work on complex systems. We can say this. So I had a great chance to meet him and to visit him some 10 years. He was my mentor, and unfortunately we lost him in 2019. We also published together in Studies of QE Statistics in rank distributions. It was about complex systems, how a rank distribution belongs to complex systems, obeys QE statistics. QE statistics is a statistical of mechanics. It's called generalized statistical mechanics, proposed by Konstantinos Tsourtoulis. That's why it's also called Phys statistics. So we show that in this paper. I will give some example about superstatistics. It's also connected to QE statistics. Therefore, I wanted to mention a bit. And the next property is the self-organization. So complex systems may self-organize to produce non-trivial patterns spontaneously without a blueprint. So here we can give this example, a large population of starlings. So the prominent properties of self-organization behavior is there is no central control and external control. And then this may remind us the reductionist thinking. So reductionist thinking, it says that if you know the part of the systems, you can understand the whole system. But in this case, even if you know very well one of the birds, starling, so you don't understand all patterns. So this is the complex system. So next one is the dynamics. As we know, complex systems tend to change their states dynamically, often showing unpredictable long-term behavior. Actually, complex system may have steady states too, but instead just moving towards the steady state, are often active. So we can give another example for different disciplines, like a financial volatility in the stock market. And then next property is adaptation. Complex systems may adapt and evolve. And when some components of complex systems are damaged or removed, in that case, complex systems are often able to recover it even better than the before. So the example of these properties might be, good example, the immune system, continuously learning about pathogens. And then next feature is the interdisciplinarity. Complex science can be used to understand and manage a wide variety of systems in many domains. And complex system is not only natural system, it's also human-made systems, as you see here. And then methods. So because of all these properties, the traditional methods are limited to understand complex systems. Therefore, we need to develop new methods. We need to use new methods. And I just mentioned the QE statistics is the statistical mechanics of complex systems, generalized statistical mechanics. And the superstatistics is also a powerful tool to classify complex systems. So there are three universality universal typical of superstatistics. Actually, one of them corresponds to Q statistics also. I will show in a few slides later. And then complex network, and then agent-based models, then so on. So now I want to mention briefly what is superstatistics, typical university classes, and depending the time, I want to give this some applications. Okay, so many complex systems are effectively described by a mixture of different statistics on different time scales. So let's consider Brownian particle. So the Brownian particle moving through this in a homogeneous environment, so see different inverse temperature. So therefore you have mixture of two statistics. Locally ordinary Brownian motion at inverse temperature beta E, and superimposed to this is the stochastic process of inverse temperature beta E. And in 2001, Christian Beck, in his early PRL, he constructed very simple realization of in terms of Langevin equation. So this is L is Gaussian white noise, V velocity. But if you assume this gamma and sigma fluctuate, then you have superstatistical distribution. And beta, also here the gamma over to 2 sigma square. Gamma damping constant. And if you do that, then you have a different probabilities. One is Gaussian, when you have some fixed beta, and the other one is joint probability, marginal probability. And in 2003, Cohen and Christian Beck generated this name, superstatistics. The meaning of the statistics of statistics actually is the superposition of statistics, such a superposition of Boltzmann factors with the distribution of f of beta of inverse temperature. We call it, we say now inverse temperature, but of course, depending the system, the parameters is changed if it doesn't have to be temperature for all systems. And then you can then with these general Boltzmann factors, which are more general than just this exponential, so you can do a lot of general results, and then so people they apply this to very different areas as a theoretical development of the superstatistics and also practical application of superstatistics. So basic idea of superstatistics. So you have this mathematical identity here. So you have this f of beta distribution function. This when you put this function, you get this distribution out of integral. So this corresponds actually, this is q exponential. Because this is chi square, this gives us q exponential. But if you put different function here, you get a slightly different distribution, of course. So if we look at these typical classes of superstatistics, f, you give the f of beta. If we choose this chi square, for example, here, we choose this chi square, and then we find the q statistics, actually q exponential. It gives us q exponential, this one. But if you put different function, you get slightly different distribution. So in 2005, Cohen, Civil, and Beck looked at many different complex systems, and they saw that mostly they encountered these three distributions. Therefore, these three are the typical classes of superstatistics. But this doesn't mean there is no different type of superstatistics, because for the environmental superstatistics, actually we show that some double peak superstatistical application. So, but before we go there, I put These figures from the review of generalized statistical mechanics of superstatistics to show you how the figures and fitting looks like. This one observed departure delay statistics on the British Railway network. The Q exponential fit very well. And this one is the measured probability density of small scale velocity differences in Lagrangian turbulence. You see, this is the Q Gaussian. So it's this sharp peak and fat tail. Sometimes it's long tail, sometimes fat tail, depending the system's behavior. So it's perfectly fit very well. And this one, survival time statistics of breast cancer patients diagnosed with cancer. These logarithmic plots, log, semi-log. So these are the other example corresponds to these typical classes. So now I will discuss that superstatistical distribution of surface temperature and if there is a time rainfall amounts. And for this application, first we look at this climate classification map. These maps by Cohen Geiger, first Cohen, then Geiger developed it. There are it has 5 main groups: tropical climate, arid, temperate, cold, and polar climate. These main groups also has subgroups. So we have 8 different locations in different climatic zones. For example, for tropical, Darwin, and arid, Santa Fe, and arid, desert, hot, and cold. You know, it is the main group, but there are different subgroup, Dubai. And temperate, Sydney, Central England, Vancouver, against temperate Hong Kong, cold is Ottawa, and polar is Eureka. So when we look at, when we analyze this in detail, inverse temperature distribution, what we do is the inverse temperature distribution actually. We got the temperature, but we plotted the inverse temperature distribution. We look at the long-term data, including seasonal variations, which induce double peak distribution. So here, these are the results. The broad left peak corresponds to summer, and right peak corresponds to winter. And for Santa Fe, Sydney, Vancouver, and Central England. So in these examples, because of the double peak, we combine these 2 Gaussians, summer and winter Gaussian. Also, the plot of Central England and Vancouver are very similar. We realized it because then we realized that they are in the same subgroups, PFB. And this is for Dubai. Dubai have also some special case because of the very similar variance. We also fitted it in one curve by an exponential with a double well potential. And this is Darwin. As you see, there is no second peak because of the tropical climate. There is only one. But this is the polar region, Eureka. There is a larger intermediate area. So winter, it shows the difference of how different winter and summer. And these are the some parameters for summer and winter, and also a beta, our beta inverse temperature. We listed these are. And also we wanted to look at the monthly data because we wanted to eliminate seasonal variation. If you look at only 1 month, we eliminate the seasonal variation. For example, this one, Vancouver, May 2011. This is the data, and this is almost a Gaussian distribution. But if we do a better statistics for 50 years of November for Ottawa, then this corresponding histogram well fitted by Gaussian. We saw that. And because of we have already this data, we thought we can also look at the global warming, how it looks like, time versus average temperature, because we have an average of daily measure mean temperature of every single year. For Eureka, we saw that the global warming rate is 0.92. As we expected, it was the bigger one because of Arctic region. And the other places, for example, Dubai 0.63, Sydney average global warming rate 0.13, and Vancouver 0.11, and Ottawa 0.18. And our conclusion here, we saw that our superstatistical distributions are consistent with the Copen-Geiger climate classification system, which is the most used climate classification system. Also, these environmentally important distributions are different from the standard example of distribution functions. As I mentioned you, chi-square, inverse chi-square, and log normal. They are different. These applications are different than. And part two is actually, I think I started my presentation a bit earlier. That's why I couldn't see the right time. How many minutes that I have? Okay. Okay. So this is about the daily rainfall analysis. So we have this time, we have these regions: Central England, Darwin, Dubai, Eureka, Vancouver, Sydney, Ottawa, Hong Kong. And we did daily rainfall amount distribution for these locations. And we also looked at the waiting time distribution between rainy days, and just a bit extreme event statistics for exponential and q-exponential distribution. And here in this case, as I show you in the basic idea of superstatistics, we will see that the distribution will be well fitted to q-exponential. So this is amount of rainfall, probability density function for Central England, Darwin, Eureka, and Dubai. So we see that the actual value of Q for the observed rainfall statistics left reflects characteristic effective properties in climate and temporal precipitation patterns. So as you see here, it's repeated very well. And if you look at the other locations, also most of the locations are well fitted 1.3, but Central England and Vancouver somehow closer 1.13. They were also similar for the surface temperature analysis. They were in the same group, same subgroup for climate. So we look at also waiting time distribution between rainy days. So what we did, for example, today we had rainy and we wait. How many days we wait? 3 days. And then again we had rainy days. So we created new time series from this data, and then we observed these distributions for Central England and Eureka, and then Darwin, Ottawa, Sydney, Vancouver. But in this case, the Q parameter of Q exponential is the close to 1.05. It is different than the temperature distribution, rainfall distribution. So in the conclusion, actually, we compared these. We realized that the power laws corresponds to Q exponential actually in the complex system literature. I can say. So here, it corresponds to Frechet distribution. Exponential laws, its Q is more close to 1, which means very close to ordinary exponential is 1. Because if the Q is equal 1, it gives us the normal Gaussian. And this corresponds to Gumbel distribution. We shortly look at that. And finally, I can say one more application to show. This is from the cosmic rays application. So we receive these electrons and positrons from the International Space Station. So at first, when we fit it, actually, we also calculated it theoretically. At some point, we fit it very well. But when we did a superposition of Q values, then we perfectly fitted all these flux versus energy distribution. So, of course, there are many details, but just I want to show you how the figures look like, because I think I saw similar figures in many presentations. Maybe it would be possible to think as a complex systems. Actually, biology, of course, is full of complex systems. Itself is complex. If you look at that approach, of course. And finally, I would like to thank you again. And I would like to give a short information about our working group, non-linear science working group. It's based in Istanbul, Turkey, since 2001. So we do every year a international symposium on disordered systems theory and its applications. So this is photo from last year. So every year we do it in Istanbul. But first years we were doing it in another city, Izmir, in Turkey. 1 year we did in Germany as a hybrid. So this year again it will be in Istanbul, probably end of this year again. We didn't fix yet, but I would be happy to have you. So maybe when we get a fixed date, I try to give information about that. Thank you very much.